All right, so would you tell us a little bit about your profession and your schooling experience?
Yeah, I work at an architecture firm in Minneapolis, and I went to school in undergrad and got my master's degree at the University of Minnesota in architecture. Um, and
Awesome. And did you ever take any environmental related courses through architecture at the University of Minnesota?
yeah, we were required to take a number of classes that talked about the environment and architecture and like how they intersect, as well as I had like a minor in landscape architecture in undergrad, which was not required for me to do, but definitely was something sought out because I don't know, I thought it was interesting bringing the environment inside in architecture and not just being something that's on the outside, existing in its own like world, basically. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how long have you been a professional architect, I should say?
I'm not technically a licensed architect. I work under architects, but hopefully will become a licensed architect eventually. But I've been working in the field for about 5 years now.
Wow. And how often has environmental issues been brought up in your line of work?
Like all the time, like especially in school. We talk about it constantly, no matter if it was like a structures class that has nothing to do with like the environment, just the structure of the building itself. How like the materials are made and processed, say like shipped across like the world. The footprint of a building is something that we talk about a lot. One thing that's become more prominent in architecture in the last couple decades is the LEED buildings, LEED buildings. They're like these certified buildings that are specially designed to meet the standards of being most like environmentally friendly. There's different levels of it, like gold, silver, and all that stuff. But those are just buildings that think about how to use things like sunlight to heat the building instead of powering it with electricity like we're used to. So like doing things like positioning the building to use sunlight to heat the inside, things like that, shading over windows to either help block out sunlight so there's not overheating inside, that sort of thing.
And I know you talked about a lot of it is through the firm itself. They try to be environmentally friendly. But do you feel as though you have a moral obligation to think about these environmental issues in your line of work?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we learned early on in school was architecture is like the biggest contributor to global warming, which is like scary that like I'm going into this field, but like we have such a big impact on like the trajectory of global warming, how we can slow it down and things like that.
That's awesome. And do you embody protecting the environment in your job? Do you think with that moral obligation you feel as though you always keep that on the forefront of your mind?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we think about from day one when we start a project. And usually we try to take on clients that also have that same personal value in what am I trying to say? Trying to put the environment before the design needs and use purposes.
Awesome. And I know we talked about all architecture related, but how do you embody protecting the environment in your personal life? Because it sounds like you are passionate about it and it's something you think a lot about. Do you take a lot of time in your personal day to recycle and things like that?
Yeah, I've always made fun of my mom for being so strict about okay, we divide up our recycling and all that stuff, and it's good to see the generation in front of us starting to take action in that, but it's really our generation of people that we're gonna have to carry this through and really change how the world is trending in terms of the environment.